Hi everybody, I got a question for you today. We all agree that, renewable green energy is better than carbon emission energy and polluting and things like that. But at what cost does it become too excessive? And I got an example of this right here in Ottawa that we're debating, well, we're supposed to be debating, but City Council's not debating, they're just shoving it through. So let me clarify for a bit here. I'm not against electric vehicles. I'm not against renewable energy, anything that's good, but we can't just say, end fossil fuels today and everything has to be green no matter what the cost comes, right? So things have to be affordable for people. If an electric car costs $200,000 and a diesel car costs $50,000, most people are going to go for the $50,000 car because we can't afford the $200,000 car. You see where I'm getting at there. But here in Ottawa, we have a light rail system. And by all accounts, the very first year that it ran was a complete disaster. The train wheels became flat. Yeah, that's right, train wheels became flat. They kept breaking down. They couldn't work properly in the winter. They did not work during snowstorms. They often had to cancel and bring in a ton of buses to replace from stop to stop. Some people ended up taking 4 or 5 buses that was supposed to would have normally taken 2 buses to get there because of the LRT system completely breaking down during the winter. And we're spending billions of dollars on this system. So now comes the green energy part. We were going to run a pilot project here in Ottawa where they were going to buy 6 or 8 electric buses. And they were going to run a pilot project to see if they could do the winters here in Canada. Remember, Ottawa, capital of Canada, is one of the coldest capitals in the world on average. So they wanted to make sure that it can last our winters, and it can do our snowfall and things like that. So they're going to run a pilot project. Suddenly, out of nowhere, it goes from a small 6 to 8 bus pilot project to we're going to buy 450 buses for $1 billion. Well, so we know they're going to work. We know it's going to work like our transit system works. No, we're not doing a study. We trust the company, like we trusted the company who built the light rail system that still doesn't work today. Yep, that's what we're going to do, and it's $1 billion. But don't worry, the federal government's going to give us some of that money too, and everything. And it's 450 buses. We're going to do it right away, and we're going to shove it through City Council. Green at any cost. We want to be the most green capital city in the world for $1 billion. And then people say, well, yeah, you know what? It's not coming out of the city, 100% of the city's budget and everything. It's coming out of the federal. It's still coming out of my tax dollars. It doesn't matter if the city spends it or the provincial government spends it or the federal government spends it. They're spending my tax dollars. So we want them to do this at least smartly. We don't want to have 450, 1/3 of the buses in Ottawa. By the way, it's only 1/3 of the buses. So it's not going to be 100% zero emission anymore. They're spending $1 billion to replace these. They haven't tested to see if the electrical charges hold in the wintertime here in Canada. They haven't tested the buses themselves. They haven't done a single test. And they're ready to throw $1 billion at it so they can say green energy. Now, here's a side note. There's a company right here that has a device that works on diesel vehicles. And what it does is it changes the vehicle and it introduces water, distilled water into the system, and it burns it with the diesel fuel, and it cuts emissions by 50% or more. In some cases, it's been up to 80%, depending on the vehicle. But it's never been below 55% cut in emissions. And it doesn't need to, it can be installed on any bus. And this company says they could outfit the entire bus fleet here in Ottawa, over 1,100 vehicles, not just 450, 1,100 vehicles for about $4.5–5 million. $billion? Don't know, it doesn't know if it's going to work. $4–5 million on every bus cuts emissions immediately in half. Immediately. None of this waiting or immediately. Because with the electric bus system, you say, yeah, but Don, it's going to be zero emissions. Yeah, it's going to be zero emissions, supposedly, if they work, for 450 buses, which still leaves 600 to 700 buses still running, which is not going to be eliminating any emissions whatsoever. So if you do the math, this will still eliminate more emissions by cutting the other ones in half, 50 to 55% for the entire bus fleet, than replacing 1/3 of the bus fleet. It's simple math. 66% emissions, 50% emissions. $5 million, $1 billion. Which one would you go? It's just, they didn't even look at this option, and they're just rushing this through with zero planning. And that's the part that really annoys me. If they had done a pilot project and said, yes, we tested these buses for 6 months during the winter here in Ottawa, they worked perfectly, they held their charge, everything was good, they didn't break down, then you have an argument. But once again, they're buying a system just like our light transit rail system here in Ottawa, that they did not test, that they did not check out, that they're just rushing through. And by the way, it rushed through the planning committee in less than a week, and it's going to be rushed through city council in less than a week. The fastest $1 billion this city has ever spent, ever. And they haven't done a single test to make sure it's gonna work. Meanwhile, there is a system that is already in place and already working that will cut emissions in half for, oh yeah, way less money. In fact, $995 million cheaper. And it works. But hey, greenest capital in the world, green at any cost to the taxpayer, I guess.